August 10, 1991. A quiet hotel in Martinsburg, West Virginia. A maid steps into room 517, expecting another routine cleanup. Instead, she finds a nightmare. Blood in the bathtub. A body, lifeless, wrists slashed. A single razor blade on the sink and a note. Short, cryptic, almost too simple. The police call it suicide. But the man lying there, Danny Casolaro, wasn't just anyone. He was a journalist chasing something massive, something he called the Octopus, a conspiracy so vast, so tangled, it reached the highest levels of power, a web of secrets that some believe cost him his life. Tonight, we're diving deep into the tentacles of a conspiracy that may have claimed multiple lives and changed the course of history.
Reporter Danny Casolaro was found dead over the weekend in a motel in Martinsburg, West Virginia.
But before we dive in, some of the details in this story are disturbing and may not be suitable for all audiences, so viewer discretion is strongly advised. As always, remember to hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on post notifications to stay up to date with the channel. All right, let's dive into the video.
Weekend in a motel in Martinsburg, West Virginia.
Local authorities quickly ruled his death a suicide.
To understand the octopus, we need to understand the man who named it. Danny Casolaro was born on June 16, 1947, in McLean, Virginia, just outside the pulsing heart of Washington, D.C. Raised in a devout Catholic family, he was one of 6 children, a dreamer with a knack for words. He went to Providence College, where he studied English, boxed in his spare time, and wrote poetry that hinted at a restless, curious mind. After college, he married, had a son named Trey, and settled into a life that seemed on the surface ordinary. But Danny was anything but. By the late 1970s, Danny was writing for computer trade magazines, covering the tech boom with a journalist's eye. He wasn't a household name, but he was respected, known for his charm, his persistence, and his ability to sniff out a story. Friends described him as charismatic, a man who could talk to anyone, from tech geeks to government insiders. But by 1990, something shifted. Danny returned to investigative journalism, chasing a story that would consume him. It started with a small software company called Inslaw, but it grew into something far bigger, something he believed could change the world. Danny's brother Tony saw the change. Late-night phone calls, stacks of notebooks filled with names, dates, and connections. Danny wasn't just working on a story, he was living it. He told Tony he was meeting sources, dangerous ones, men with ties to intelligence agencies, organized crime, maybe worse. "If something happens to me," he said, "it's not an accident." Those words would haunt Tony for years. Danny's friends noticed it too. He was losing weight, sleeping less, talking in riddles about a conspiracy he called the Octopus. He said it had 8 arms, 8 men, controlling everything from Washington to the Middle East. He was close, he told them. Too close. Danny wasn't a conspiracy theorist by nature. He was a skeptic, a poet, a man who believed in truth. But the deeper he dug, the more he changed. His apartment became a war room, walls covered in papers, maps, and strings connecting seemingly unrelated events. He was chasing something bigger than Watergate, he told his friends, something that could expose the rot at the core of power. But as he followed the threads, he started to fear the shadows following him. Phone calls with no one on the other end. Strange cars outside his house. And then, in August 1991, a trip to Martinsburg. A trip he wouldn't come back from.
Freelance journalist Danny Casolaro told friends he was on to the political conspiracy of the century.
The story of the octopus begins with a single thread. A small software company called Inslaw and a piece of software called Promise. In the late 1970s, Bill Hamilton, a former NSA analyst, founded Inslaw to develop software for law enforcement. Promise Prosecutors Management Information System was revolutionary for its time. It could track cases, cross-reference data, and streamline operations for agencies like the Department of Justice. By 1982, Inslaw had a $10 million contract with the DOJ to implement PROMIS nationwide. It was a dream deal for a small company, but dreams have a way of turning into nightmares. By 1985, Inslaw was in trouble. The DOJ, under Ronald Reagan's administration, began withholding payments, claiming the software didn't work as promised. Hamilton fought back, accusing the DOJ of stealing PROMIS and using it without paying. Inslaw went bankrupt and Hamilton sued. In 1988, a federal bankruptcy court ruled in Inslaw's favor, finding that the DOJ had taken, converted, and stolen PROMIS through trickery, fraud, and deceit. The ruling was a bombshell, but it was overturned on appeal, and the case stalled. Hamilton didn't give up. He kept digging, and what he found caught Danny Casolaro's attention. Michael Riconosciuto, a figure straight out of a spy novel, a child prodigy turned tech genius, Riconosciuto claimed he'd worked on PROMIS for a company tied to the DOJ. He told Hamilton, and later Danny, that PROMIS had been modified with a backdoor, allowing the government to spy on anyone using it. According to Riconosciuto, the DOJ didn't just steal PROMIS. They sold it to foreign governments, intelligence agencies, and even banks, embedding the backdoor to monitor everything from criminal cases to financial transactions. Canada, Israel, Libya, dozens of countries were allegedly using PROMIS, unaware that it was a Trojan horse. Danny latched onto the Inslaw case in 1990, seeing it as the key to a larger conspiracy. He interviewed Hamilton, Riconosciuto, and others, piecing together a story that went beyond software theft. Riconosciuto's claims were wild, but he had credibility, documents, connections, and a history of working with intelligence agencies. He told Danny about a cabal of powerful figures, men with ties to the CIA, the Reagan administration, and global crime networks. Danny started calling it the Octopus, a metaphor for a conspiracy with tentacles in every major scandal of the era. But Riconosciuto's warnings came with a price. Shortly after speaking to Danny, he was arrested on drug charges he claimed were fabricated to silence him. Was he a whistleblower or a con man spinning tales? Danny didn't know, but he kept digging. The Inslaw case wasn't just about stolen software. It was about power, about who controls information and how far they'd go to keep it. For Danny, it was the first thread in a tapestry that would lead him to some of the most dangerous men in the world. And the deeper he went, the more he realized this wasn't just a story. It was a war.
He was about to discover all. Instead, his body was discovered in a hotel room with 12...
Danny Casolaro's investigation didn't stop with Inslaw. It grew, sprawling into a conspiracy he believed connected some of the biggest scandals of the 1980s and 1990s. He called it the Octopus because it had 8 arms, 8 powerful men, whose influence reached across governments, intelligence agencies, and global crime networks. To Danny, Inslaw was just the beginning, a single tentacle in a beast that included the Iran-Contra affair, the October surprise, and the collapse of the Bank of Credit and Commerce International, or the BCCI. Each scandal, he believed, was linked by a shadowy group operating above the law. Let's break it down. The Iran-Contra affair, exposed in 1986, revealed that the Reagan administration had secretly sold arms to Iran and funneled the profits to Nicaraguan rebels, bypassing Congress. The October surprise, a theory still debated, suggested that Reagan's campaign team delayed the release of American hostages in Iran to sabotage Jimmy Carter's 1980 election. BCCI, a global bank shut down in 1991, was a hub for money laundering, drug trafficking, and terrorism financing, with ties to the CIA and Middle Eastern governments. Danny saw connections where others saw chaos. He believed a single group, orchestrated by 8 key figures, pulled the strings behind all of it. One name kept coming up: Robert Booth Nichols. A tall, imposing man with a slick demeanor, Nichols was a self-proclaimed intelligence operative with ties to the CIA, organized crime, and Hollywood. Danny met him in 1991, introduced by a mutual contact. Nichols was charismatic but cryptic, dropping hints about his involvement in covert operations. He told Danny about a doctored JFK assassination tape, a supposed smoking gun that could rewrite history. Journalist Sherry Seymour, who later wrote The Last Circle, was present for some of these conversations. She described Nichols as a man who spoke in riddles, always one step ahead, always watching. Danny was fascinated but uneasy. Nichols warned him, digging too deep could get him killed. Danny's notes grew more chaotic as he chased the octopus. He named figures like Ted Shackley, a former CIA associate director, and George Bush Sr., then vice president during Iran-Contra. He linked them to Promise, claiming the software was used to launder money and track dissidents. He spoke of Native American reservations turned into black sites for covert operations, a claim Riconosciuto backed up. Every lead seemed to point to a deeper layer of corruption, a network so vast it was almost incomprehensible. But the more Danny learned, the more dangerous his world became. Strange phone calls, men following him, documents vanishing from his apartment. He told his brother he was meeting a source in Martinsburg, someone who could blow the story wide open. That meeting would be his last. Danny's octopus wasn't just a theory, it was a warning. He believed he'd uncovered a machine that ran on secrecy, power, and betrayal. But as he pulled at the threads, he didn't realize how tightly they were wrapped around him. The question wasn't just what he'd found, it was who he'd crossed.
In West Virginia, authorities are investigating the mysterious death of a journalist and possible connections to the...
Before we continue on, if you are enjoying the video so far, please remember to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. And if you don't like it, let me know down in the comments. Your support truly means everything. All right, back to the video.
To the BCCI bank scandal and the weapons for Iran case. Wyatt Andrews.
On August 8, 1991, Danny Casolaro checked into the Sheraton Inn in Martinsburg, West Virginia. He was there to meet a source, someone he believed could provide the final piece of his octopus puzzle. He'd been cagey about the trip, telling only a few people, including his brother Tony. He seemed nervous but excited, convinced he was close to breaking the story of a lifetime. 2 days later, he was dead. The official report is stark. On August 10th, a maid found Danny in the bathtub of room 517, naked, with multiple slashes on his wrists, some say 8, others 12. Blood coated the tiles, the floor, even the walls, as if he'd stumbled before collapsing. A single razor blade sat on the sink, gleaming under the fluorescent light. A note, scrawled on hotel stationery, read,
"I'm sorry, especially to my son."
The police arrived, took photos, and ruled it a suicide within hours. No autopsy delays, no deep investigation. Just a journalist who, they said, couldn't handle the pressure. But the details didn't add up. Danny's wrists were cut deeply, severing tendons and veins, cuts so severe that forensic experts later questioned whether he could have made them himself without passing out. There was no sign of a struggle, no defensive wounds, yet blood spatter suggested movement. His briefcase, stuffed with notes and floppy disks, was missing. So were the files in his car. His family was stunned. Danny had been anxious, yes, but suicidal? Never. Tony insisted Danny would have written a novel, not a one-line note. Friends pointed to his warnings. If something happens to me, it's not an accident. Then there was the source. The night before his death, Danny met someone, possibly a man named Joseph Cuellar, an Army intelligence officer with ties to the shadowy world Danny was investigating. Witnesses saw Danny at a bar, nervous but focused, clutching a file. What did Cuellar tell him? Was it the key to the octopus or a lure to draw him out? No one knows. Cuellar's name faded into the fog, and the police didn't pursue it. Danny's family hired private investigators who found more questions than answers. Blood spatter experts suggested the scene was staged. A coroner noted the cuts were inconsistent with suicide, yet the official ruling never changed. Danny's death wasn't just a tragedy, it was a turning point. His story could have ended in that hotel room, but it didn't. The questions he left behind, about Inslaw, about the octopus, about the men he named, kept the mystery alive. Was he killed to protect a secret? Or did the weight of his obsession crush him? The truth, like the conspiracy he chased, remains just out of reach.
And yet, either way, suicide or murder, investigators from both the House and the Senate are in line.
Danny Casolaro's death didn't close the book on the octopus. If anything, it threw fuel on the fire. In the years that followed, journalists, investigators, and conspiracy theorists picked up where Danny left off, trying to untangle the web he'd uncovered. One of those investigators was Christian Hansen, a photojournalist who stumbled onto Danny's story decades later. Alongside filmmaker Zachary Treitz, Hansen spent over 10 years chasing the same threads, resulting in the 2024 Netflix docuseries, American Conspiracy: The Octopus Murders. Their journey wasn't just a documentary, it was a descent into the same shadows that consumed Danny. Hansen was drawn to the story by chance, finding a box of Danny's notes in a storage unit. The pages were chaotic. Names, dates, diagrams, and cryptic references to Promise, Nichols, and the CIA. Hansen, like Danny, became obsessed. He tracked down key figures, including Michael Riconosciuto, now out of prison, but still claiming Promise was a tool for global surveillance. He spoke to Sherry Seymour, whose book The Last Circle built on Danny's work, detailing Nichols's ties to organized crime and intelligence. Hansen even faced his own strange encounters, phone taps, cryptic warnings, and a sense that he was being watched. The docuseries doesn't solve the mystery, and that's the point. It lays out the evidence, Danny's death, the Inslaw case, the names he chased, and lets viewers decide. Was the octopus real? A network of power that still operates today? Or was it a myth, a story spun by paranoid minds? Hansen's quest mirrors Danny's, a search for truth that only leads to more questions. He and Treitz faced resistance, dead ends, and moments of doubt, but they kept going, driven by the same question that haunted Danny. How deep does this go? The aftermath of Danny's death also saw legal battles. Inslaw's Bill Hamilton continued his fight against the DOJ, though he never fully recovered his company's losses. Congressional hearings in the early 1990s investigated Promise and found evidence of misconduct, but no one was held accountable. Riconosciuto's claims about the software's backdoor were dismissed as unprovable, though whispers persisted in intelligence circles. The octopus became a legend, a cautionary tale for anyone who dared to dig too deep.
Inslaw affair, when a court ruled the Reagan Justice Department stole valuable law enforcement.
So what happened to Danny Casolaro? The official story says he took his own life, overwhelmed by a failing investigation and personal stress. But the evidence and the questions paint a different picture. Let's explore three possibilities, each more unsettling than the last. Theory 1. Murder by the octopus. Danny believed he'd uncovered a conspiracy involving some of the most powerful men in the world: CIA operatives, politicians, and crime lords. If he was right, his death could have been an assassination to protect their secrets. The missing documents, the deep wrist cuts, the mysterious source named Cuellar, all point to a cover-up. Nichols, with his intelligence ties, and others like Shackley had the means and motive to silence a nosy journalist. If the octopus was real, Danny was a threat, and his death was a message. Stop digging. Theory 2. Suicide under pressure. Not everyone buys the murder angle. Danny was under immense stress, financially strained, divorced, and obsessed with a story that seemed to grow bigger by the day. Friends noted his anxiety, his weight loss, his sleepless nights. Could the weight of the octopus, real or imagined, have pushed him to a breaking point? The suicide note, though brief, mentioned his son, a personal touch that suggests despair. But even this theory leaves gaps. Why were his files missing? Why did he warn his brother about an accident? Theory 3. A fabricated conspiracy. The wildest theory is that Danny was misled, fed a web of lies by sources like Riconosciuto and Nichols to discredit him. Riconosciuto's criminal history and Nichols' cryptic demeanor raise questions about their reliability. Was the octopus a fiction? A story designed to lure Danny into a trap? If so, his death, whether suicide or murder, could have been the final act in a game to make him look unstable. But this theory struggles with the Inslaw case's documented evidence and the real scandals Danny tied to his work. What's the truth? That's for you to decide. If the octopus exists, it raises chilling questions about power and control in our world. If it doesn't, it's a testament to how obsession can consume a brilliant mind. Either way, Danny's story resonates because it's about the cost of seeking truth in a world that doesn't always want it found. So, what do you think? Is the octopus still out there? Its tentacles hidden in plain sight?
In my heart, I remember Danny telling us, if I'm in an accident, don't believe it.
Danny Casolaro's story is a maze with no exit. A journalist chasing a conspiracy so vast it defied comprehension, only to end up dead in a hotel room, his notes gone, his questions unanswered. The Inslaw case, the Promise software, the names he circled in his notebooks, they're pieces of a puzzle that still doesn't fit together. Was he a hero exposing a truth too dangerous to reveal? A fool, lost in a web of his own making? Or a pawn, manipulated by forces he couldn't understand? 30 years later, we're no closer to the truth.
There were no other contusions, lacerations, or other trauma to the body that would indicate a struggle.
Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, then check out these videos on the screen now. If you have a topic suggestion, please send it to the email in the description. And as always, remember to like, share the video, and subscribe to our channel. And remember, the only thing scarier than this story is missing out on our next video.